Hello, in today's video we'll talk about stewardship implemented as governance roles in TopBraid EDG. First, let's discuss what is stewardship in TopBraid EDG, what it is used for. The primary role of the stewardship model is to let TopBraid EDG users from different parts of the organization collaborate with each other using interactive views that are role-based, using workflow actions, getting notifications, and so on. So that's the software support within EDG as a solution. However, the role of the stewardship model is also to document responsibilities different stakeholders have for the different assets. And it also ensures that each user knows who to ask questions for because they know who plays a role for what role for a given asset. In TopBraid EDG, we define the stewardship model by assigning governance roles for different assets. The governance roles in TopBraid EDG some of them come pre-built, predefined. These are the most common governance roles, such as data steward, business steward, subject matter expert, etc. About a dozen of pre-built roles. You can add more roles that you need for your information governance program, and you could also remove the pre-built roles that come with TopBraid EDG if they are not relevant for your organization. What can you assign governance roles for? You could assign governance roles at the governance area level. We have a separate video describing governance areas and how to create them. And when you assign a governance role at that level, it applies to all sub areas and all asset collections within an area. You could also assign governance roles at the specific asset collection level, and furthermore, you could assign them for individual assets within a collection. And that's supported for some types of collection, but not for every type of a collection. For example, it's not supported for reference datasets because with reference datasets, essentially, the roles are typically at the entire dataset level. You're not going to have a role specific to the individual code. But you could have asset-based roles for, let's say, glossary terms. You could have them for systems, and so on. Who can the roles be assigned to? You could assign roles directly to individual users of TopBraid EDG. Now, if your identity provider solution, such as LDAP, has business-oriented groups that align with how you want to do stewardship in TopBraid EDG. For example, if you have a group for all members of the marketing department, you can assign stewardship to those groups, and then they apply to everyone in a group. And then if you don't have that, you could define organizations in TopBraid EDG. The entire organization breakdown structure can be specified and captured in TopBraid EDG, and you could assign members to organizations, and then you could assign governance roles at that level by assigning them to the entire organization. In this case, the governance role is then applies to all members of the organization. Now let's take a look at how this assignment of governance roles is done in TopBraid EDG. Here on the home page of TopBraid EDG, if a user has some governance roles, it typically will be displayed on the home page unless they deactivated this part of the display. You could see that I have a business steward role for 2 asset collections. And if I go into my users page, my user profile page, I also see governance roles specified here. Now, assignment of governance roles at the governance area level is done on the governance area page. And as I mentioned, we have we have a special video for this page. Please take a look. And you could see here that I have finance, for example, as a business area, and then within that I have procurement as a sub area, and there are already some asset collections associated with the areas. So here business steward role is assigned for finance, and these two individuals that have this role would also have this role for procurement as a sub area, and correspondingly to all for all asset collections within procurement. As you click on the role, you could make assignments, and you could also change the permissions that role has. By default, if you have a role, then you have at least a viewer permission for all asset collections in the area. But you could change the level of permissions here as well. And that will be specific to that role within the area. So it doesn't mean that all business stewards in any area have, for example, editor permission. It will just mean that all business stewards for finance have editor permissions. If you want to remove a role, you could click, and this will disable this role for this specific area. In other words, it just removes the assignments and remove the role. You could add it again later if you want to. As you click on the role, you also see a description of what this role is responsible for, and all of this can be changed in TopBraid Edge models, and you could also create new roles, as I have mentioned. So let's click on procurement and assign, add a governance role to it. For example, let me add a subject matter expert role. So you could see that there is a subject matter expert role for procurement. At this moment, it's unassigned, and I could assign an individual user to it. I don't have any LDAP groups, but I do have organizations defined. So I could assign, for example, a procurement department to this role. At this point, the procurement department does not have any members, and I could go to organizations page, and I could add members to the procurement department. In this page right now, I have a very simple definition of our organizational structure. I just have two organizations, but there can be a complete organizational breakdown structure with sub-organizations, and you could define, specify different working groups, boards, departments, divisions, and organize them as you want. So here, for example, I could assign 2 members to the organization, and now they will become they will get the subject matter expert role through the assignment at the department level. Now, so this is how you assign roles for the entire governance area. If you look at the individual asset collection, there is no role specified at the collection level, but we could go there and go to the users tab, and you see that it's got some inferred or inherited governance roles through the subject area. So the 2 business stewards, and then procurement department as a subject matter expert. Now, if I wanted to add additional roles at this level, I could do so by clicking on this edit button and add more roles. So, for example, you could do something like this. And our permissions have also been updated because the roles entail permissions. Now, if I wanted to assign roles at the asset level, I need to first enable assignment of roles at the asset level. And this is done at the Manage tab. So there is a checkbox here that says Enable per asset governance roles. And once it is in place, I can assign governance roles to the individual assets. So what I'm going to have is a governance roles tab, and I could assign roles at that level. So let's go back to our presentation and talk about what it means to have the role. So governance roles grant permissions for asset collections. If a user has any governance role, they have at least a viewer permission for a collection and then for all the workflows that are started for that asset collection. The high-level permissions can also be specified for some roles. And in the demo, I showed you how we could change the permission from the viewer to the editor. So that can be done at the subject area level, and you could also do that for specific type of workflows in the workflow templates. So the governance roles are very important for workflow because they target workflow actions, specifically who can transition a workflow from one state to another state, who gets notifications for the workflow, who gets the next action, and so on. You could also use them to identify users who could not start workflows. This setting is edge-wide. So if you say, for example, that subject matter experts cannot start workflows, then any user whose only role is a subject matter expert, they will not be able to start a workflow on any asset collection that they have this role for. Now, you could also use roles to provide role-specific views. For example, in case of, let's say, a glossary term, perhaps a business steward should see more fields than the subject matter expert. You may want to provide a very targeted view for the subject matter expert. And you could define that in the ontology models. Since this is configured in ontology models, it can be very targeted, not only for the type of the asset, but it could also be targeted to specific asset collections or specific business areas. So you could have within one governance area, you could have one definition of the views for subject matter experts on glossary terms, and with another subject area, that definition can be different. Roles are also used to sign up for notifications, and this is not notifications that are managed by the workflows, but kind of general event-driven notification. For example, you may want to notify some role anytime a workflow starts, or anytime a workflow completes, or anytime a task is created for an asset collection, even if it's not assigned to that person. So this type of notifications are also role driven. There is a pretty technical feature within TopBraid EDG that is a source code panel where data in TopBraid EDG is serialized in RDF. And you could use roles to determine who cannot edit that source level serialization in TopBraid EDG. So typically you want only very technical users to have that ability. And finally, you could use roles to build when building role-specific dashboards. There are some interactions between the governance roles and permission profiles. So as we have already discussed, the governance role specifies a permission profile at minimum a viewer, and then it could be higher. This profile applies to an entire asset collection. You cannot, for example, say that this person can edit a term, a given term, within a collection, and this person cannot edit a given term within a collection because the editor permission is for the entire collection. However, that can be controlled by the workflows. So you could say who can approve changes to the term. So if you always make your changes through the workflow, then this granular level of editing control will be handled through your workflows. If a user has two different roles and they entail different permission profiles, then the higher one applies. And then there are exceptions in the sense that any user that creates an asset collection gets a manager permission profile for it, irrespective of what their role says. And the same with workflows. If you start a workflow, then you have a manager permission profile for that workflow, irrespective of what your role says. And with respect to workflow, the manager permission profile is really only gives you ability to cancel the workflow and maybe add additional users to it. It doesn't really give you an ability to control who could move things from one state to another, who could approve, commit, etc. All of that is defined within the workflow template, and it's being a manager does not give you that permission. So this concludes our video, and thank you for watching.